And we're live. Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well on this Thursday. Kind of feels like a Friday. We've got an incredible show for you today. Kyve Network in the house, along with your usual co-hosts, Drew, Jaja, and Johnny. I'm pointing to them because that's how I see them up in my screen. Um, what is new in the ecosystem? I gotta tell you, whenever I'm like looking around the internets for where where the traction is coming from in the Arweave AO ecosystem, Kyve keeps popping up there. I don't know what you guys are doing, but you're doing a lot of it. So who better to have than Paul and Fabian from Kyve? Tell us from the horse's mouth. I'm gonna pick. I'm gonna go by alphabetical order here. Fabian, one thing I love doing um, is if you wouldn't mind introducing in your own words who you are, what you do at Kai, but also give us a little bit of like, your 90-second life story. I always find it so interesting how people come to crypto from the most random walks of life. We all have our own like unique journeys. Not only how you got into crypto, but then specifically like the road to Kyve. I'm dying to hear it.
For sure, for sure. I can tell you already, Paul will have a much cooler story than I
Ooh,
do. But
okay.
basically, I'm Fabian. I'm a software developer. I'm the founder of Kyve, and my journey did start on Arweave actually. But how did I get into crypto? I was invited to a hackathon at SAP, the big German software development company, and the guy to the right was an absolute crypto weirdo. We're talking 2019. Like he's like there is like this thing called an AMM, like that might become a thing, Uniswap and stuff like this. So he was way ahead of the curve, basically. And the guy to the left was working on an SAP internal product that was about public signatures of contributor license agreements for third-party developers. What does that mean? If I'm a third-party developer and I want to contribute to open source software from SAP, I had to like under my GitHub issue create a digital signature that said I'm giving away my rights on this code. This is an open source contribution. I'll not sue the SAP anytime later. And so I worked with the guy on my right. We created like an ERC20, took like 20 minutes, was really cool. And we're like, okay, it's a 3-day hackathon. What the heck are we going to do now? And so basically, I was talking to the guy, on my left a little bit, and I came back to my hotel and I was like, actually, that would be really interesting. Like, why are we not storing those signatures on the blockchain? Because like they weren't meant to be modified, they were public anyways, and I just felt it was like a very native way, to use a blockchain basically. And so spent the other 2 days of that hackathon creating like this adapter basically that would take the CLA assistant, it's still out there from SAP, and basically put this onto the Ethereum blockchain. Got a little bit of like early traction as like a testing thing, and that was it. Was fun time, 2019. Early 2020 though, the crazy crypto guy from SAP reached out to me and was like, "Hey Fabian, there is this chain called Arweave. You should talk to them because you can store documents there. So you could actually think about almost building like a decentralized DocuSign." And I was like, "Oh, that's actually a really cool idea. I should check it out." Went on the Arweave Discord, talked a lot with like Sam in the early days, and it was also a time when smart contracts weren't a thing, so way before AO and way before SmartWeave. And so it was like this, I don't know if people still remember, but like Community XYZ, R Drive, Redstone were kind of like this very early group of people. Tate, who's now at Community Labs, built Verdo back then. This was kind of like our little group. And then I had this project called Verify, where the idea was we scan Arweave addresses prior to token launches and find out if they were a bot or not, because there was quite a lot of bot traffic there for like those token claims, and this was like the initial idea. So I was always like a data type of crypto guy, basically. And then one day the Parity team reached out to me and John Leddy, who was back then on Verdo and later then joined Kyve, basically, and was like, "Hey, do you want to archive Polkadot on Arweave?" And we were like, "Sure, like it sounds like a fun weekend project. We can do it." And then we realized that actually, wait a minute, if now our code has a bug and we store wrong data, that is a big problem because it makes the archive completely useless, right? Even if I want to compute a balance, I need to sum all incoming versus all outgoing transfers. And if there's just a single mistake, like the balances never match up. And by the way, might this even be like a security consideration? Like what happens if I maliciously modify an archive load it back in without checking. So we're like, we should really think about like decentralizing, making that system trustless, basically. And this is the idea archiving, how the idea for Kyve was born, basically. And during that time, John and I worked on SmartWeave, which was like the early version of what became later AO, basically. It was very, very early stage. And so we got lots of like, early interest from like all the now big blockchains, big, they're not so big, but like a Solana, an Avalanche, an Interchain Foundation, Parity as mentioned. And so we're like, cool, like let's build a product around this. And then unfortunately quickly realized that a full-on Arweave solution wasn't possible because SmartWeave back then wasn't production ready. So we later on pivoted, like did a little Solidity route, and then ended up becoming a Cosmos L1 basically. And Paul joined us on that way, and I think we're gonna deep dive into like the Kyve story as well too. But I give Paul some time to say something about his journey.
Yeah, me too.
Totally. I can't wait to hear from Paul. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just love that. I feel like time and time again, one degen weirdo sitting next to in the office has been like the hook. There's Taylor on our team. Her boyfriend was into crypto, and that's how she ended up here. There's always that one weirdo degen. Anyways, I'm sorry, Paul. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. It's completely different story. Started working like as a plumber, like in new energies, like money, like building depredation and stuff like that. How to improve the consumption of building, basically, and renovate all of that for the French state. And then after, move to other stuff more like still related to plumbing. But at this time, I was already looking into like Bitcoin, 2015 stuff like that. But looking about like YouTube videos and like weirdos in front of Wall Street with like buy Bitcoin stuff and like screaming on the streets. And I was like, okay, why not? But didn't deep dive more than that. And after some time, I decided to involve more myself in the French ecosystem because with the accent you can guess that I am French, obviously, and start participating more, helping like the French local community for Binance, because back then Binance wasn't that big. So like got taken as a Binance Angel, basically one of the OG French Binance Angel, then joined a company as a community manager that was doing like secret NFT where you could encrypt it, secret into NFTs, and if you die, basically you would get the secret from people would get the secret from your NFT and stuff like that. And found out about Kyve, actually, pretty funny story, thanks to my mom. And it's where it's get interesting. So I am the second employee of Kyve, like basically joined after another employee that was looking for like a community manager, and it was posted on a Facebook group. Hey, like digital nomad. Hey, we are looking for community manager. And my mom saw that and she was like, "Oh, I know you have already something, but would you be interested to look into that? Like, I can send it to you, but no pressure." Like, and I was like, "Yeah, sure. Like, let's take a look. Like, I don't know about it, but let's look." And after like I was in Thailand back then, and we had a call. Like, internet connection was terrible. Like, it was like I think 4 years ago, something like that. Like
4 years ago.
4 years
Yeah.
ago. So it's been a while now. And yeah, like met Fabian and John over a call, and we met like a few weeks later, something like that, at Solana Breakpoint, the first one. Start working together, and I started as a community manager at Kyve. Now doing like a bunch of different things, I would say, like mostly focusing on integration and going to conferences and spread the word and explaining what is Kyve, why are we, why decentralized storage solution, and so on. But I think we will go over it a bit more after.
Well, Mama Paul, we appreciate you. You did us all a solid for getting Paul into the ecosystem. That is awesome. Also, I feel your pain about glitchy Zoom calls during interviews. I think we've all had that happen, and it is literally the most awkward thing on the face of the planet. So shout out to you for grinding that through. Let's get into Kyve more. I got a fun little brain teaser for you. If you could describe Kyve in a tweet, how would you do that?
Paul, you tweet more of the Kyve stuff. This is your This
That's
is
true.
right down your
Paul's
alley.
all over Twitter.
I don't know if all over. Um, like I like the analogy of like food, where Kyve will ensure that you have the right food in the right can. So we make can transparent to ensure that it's only the correct food in your can. So
Wow, knock that one out of the park.
so yeah.
Okay, great. What now in more depth, so I heard a little bit about the light bulb going off in Fabian's head when he was realizing that there could be security risks, there could be transactional discrepancies. What was the problem in Web3 in detail that you're trying to solve? And granularly, how does Kyve take care of that?
Yeah. So the problem is that in a traditional blockchain, all nodes only get money for producing new blocks, right? There is zero incentive for any node runner or miner to keep the old blocks around. So which happens if I want to increase my profit margin, I just delete my old data. And this is actually the fundamental issue. And then basically like archival nodes are always run as like a goodwill by usually the foundation, by community members,
Mm.
and that's it. Like there is no way how this is like properly, securely, trustless, like validatable archive, basically. This is like the core issue we're solving. And then actually there's a whole variety of products you can build out of it, but the core issue is no one is incentivized to store archival data. We've changed it and we made it validatable, so trustless too.
Makes a ton of sense. What are some of the chains that you guys are working with? And I'm also curious from like a builder perspective too. Like what type of requests when people say, God, I need that archival data. Thank God Kyve's here. Who are the type of people who are
Yeah.
coming to you?
So in terms of chains, I would actually say many of the big L1s that you know are working with us because we are a Cosmos chain, again, storing all data on Arweave, but our chain logic is a Cosmos L1. We have lots of chains in the Cosmos ecosystem, Celestia, DYDX, Osmosis. We also are capable of storing EVM chains. We store Ethereum blobs because they also not stored. So that's like an interesting use case. We are biting at our teeth with Solana since ever. I don't know if you saw the news, but in like archival data for Solana has finally become easier. So that's like a big relief on our side because we need a good way of like indexing this. So it's like completely VM. Like the VM really doesn't matter, basically, right? Like it's completely VM agnostic. I have a very interesting story of a customer that approached us. I'm not gonna name them, but they came to us. They say, "Hey, we are an L1. We have a problem." I was like, "Well, what's up?" So when we launched our token, that was like 4 years ago, we launched it around, I think, a $1 to $2 billion market cap. I was like, "Well, great." Now they were worth less. Okay, I'm like, "What's the issue?" And they're like, "Yeah, well, we don't have archival data in the first year." And I was like, "Okay, like, but what's the issue?" And they were like, "Yeah, we need to report our taxes." Right? Like, how are they going to do like this? Actually, like a big like you wouldn't think about something that simple. Like they had no way to submit like their taxes and their filings because they had no on-chain data. It was just gone. Like they only had the data of the last 2 years. And so we basically we worked with them. We recovered some archival snapshots from like community members, as well as also build like a crazy traceback of all the upgrades they went through backwards, basically. And then are also able, like up to a certain point, we weren't actually able to get all the way down to Genesis, but closer than the last archival node, and then started syncing our network from there onwards, basically, and archive like block by block by block by block to really create like a process that's doable. Maybe to jump a little bit into like how do you access that data? We have like
Yeah.
3 main ways. One is a regular API. If you need that data in some way, you can use it. The other one is a data pipeline. Our data is very big. It's over 16 terabytes compressed. If we talk about like individual data sets, Osmosis, for example, I know just the on-chain events are way over 10 billion. So like you need big data. We're working a lot with the Google team and Google BigQuery, basically. So we have a data pipeline that gets the data into like those larger warehouses, as well as then we have big product market fit in the Cosmos space, validator syncing. Validators, if you don't know, cannot sync to historical heights by default. That is not possible. I cannot create a node and say, please start at block height 2. That does not work. With Kyve, we've made that possible. There are various advantages. Again, like one is we construct old state. That is very important, right? Some others is just also like, we want to get into the RPC business. We want to get into the archival node business. We want to be able to sync that fast. It's like another, like I would say, low-hanging fruit on that use case. But I think this is kind of like painting a picture of like who are our customers, what kind of issues are we solving, just from like a pure foundational level there.
That totally makes a lot of sense to me. I would have loved to have been in the room when that L1 realized that it needed to pay a whole bunch of taxes. I think that would have been some nervous executives. One, I'm kind of like I keep reading about AI,
Yes.
and like the need for data. Like they're just
Yes.
hungry for data, scraping data. Am I like putting two and two together here that here's the incredible treasure trove of data? Have you guys talked that through? Are there any possibilities? You're nodding your head, so I don't feel too stupid then for asking. Yeah.
Yes. So I mean, of course, like AI is like, and the data they consume is like super important. I also think that like verifiability and provability will become a big thing in the AI space, right? Especially when we get into like this weird space, maybe in a year or two, where AI is also trained on a lot of AI generated content. I wonder if that will like spiral off in some weird way. So like, I hope that we can positioning ourselves as kind of like a trust layer that says like, no, this is like originally created data, basically like unmodified. This is what it looks like. Can be really, really interesting. A very interesting like problem we are facing and that we are also working on is actually the on-chain monetization of that data, right? So Arweave data access is free. Cool. Like perfect. Like, that's like a very novel, that's like a great idea. But actually, like when you create such a resource, you do want to kind of create a way of like, gatekeep that, make it accessible to someone that pays. And so this is actually like also later on when we go into like what are the innovations around Kyve, things that right now we're actively building on is like this native monetization layer of like making that data accessible, especially when we talk like an agentic world, right? Like one AI creating data, the other might consume that without this like being publicly shared, but like decentralized, accessible, is kind of like accessible for everyone, not for free, but for everyone. I think is really interesting, like going down that path as well. So for sure, some like up-to-date talks that we have on that.
That's interesting. When you're doing that, is there a lot of curation for like you like curating the data?
Yes.
So it's like higher quality type of data depending on who's ever's requesting or
Yes. So
access.
the way this works on Kyve is we have our validators. It can be up to 50 validators per data source. A data source is, for example, Celestia or Osmosis or any kind of chain we archive, an API we consume is a data source. What happens is that it's a proof of stake network, and one node gets selected based on the stake. So if you have the most stake, you get selected. Then you propose the data that you have for that block height. For example, block number 5, Polkadot, here's my data. All those other nodes then download that data from Arweave and check against it. Is that data correct? Do I have the same data? Yes. Then they vote yes. If no, they vote no. If the majority of the stake says, yes, I have the same data, this is valid, then basically the Kyve chain publishes that Arweave ID with that proof and says, look, if you want to get block 5 on Polkadot, this is the Arweave ID where you can get it from. This is like basically how it works. And then the curation for like blockchain data is usually does A equal B, right? But if you want to get into more complex use cases like pricing oracles, you might want to ask, is A very equal to B? Like, is the difference less than X or Y, for example? So like you can also like get into these things. Or if you maybe work with like later on like an AI, someone that publishes things with a signature attached, you can check like, hey, has this data actually been produced by someone with that signature? So this is kind of like some more advanced verification logics that you can use. But the important thing is at the end result, we have a voted mechanism. If more than 50% of the stake say, yes, this is true, then we keep that record and we say this is the canonical source of truth for that.
And just to jump on that, I think it's very unique from Kyve, where we have this it's verifiable, but also pre-verified with multiple sources that you don't see anywhere else. Like everyone will sell you verifiability or provenance. But the provenance of a data doesn't mean the data in the first place is correct. It's like saying, yeah, I heard like from someone, I don't know, from Spain telling me that, and it's happening in Spain right now. I like the provenance is Spain. Doesn't mean the source of data is correct. Like I need to gather multiple source of information to ensure that the data I am serving, like for example, as a journalist, is the correct data. It's the same with like what we are doing on chain, basically.
Or to stay with Paul's can example, just because there's a label on it that says there is tomatoes in that can, until you open it, you don't know. There could also be, pineapple in there. But this is like the difference between like verifiability and stuff being verified already. That's a big difference.
Wow, that is super duper cool. So if I'm hearing right, like there are applications here in what, like content creation, market analysis, research assistance. Am I missing anything else? Customer support?
Accounting is actually a big part
Yeah.
of like this is actually like the more dusty business, but actually like a big requests we get is this. It also gets then really interesting. What we get asked a lot as a development company is being approached by, as I said, like marketing agencies, I don't know, market makers, and be like, hey, you have this archival data. Can you compute inside X and Y for us? Right? As we had this talk with, I think it was the guys from, was it Archway back then, Paul? Where it's kind of like, hey, yeah, it's definitely Archway, where it's like, hey, we want to consume, like we have those trading algorithms. They need to learn on historical data to make, new decisions. And like I can't optimize my trading algorithm if I don't even have access to the historical data. In a way where it lives already in a big data warehouse, in a way that is consumable for my application. Because I don't know if you have ever worked with like crypto archival nodes, but that's just a REST endpoint. And good luck downloading 10 terabyte from a REST endpoint. That's going to take you days, right? And this is, I think, like the big difference.
Super cool. And in terms of how people they're watching us right now, they're like, wow, Kyve seems super cool. I want to like explore this. Do you guys still have a DAO? Like, what's your governance structure look like? I was looking up your token. It seemed very like complex and interesting. Can you talk to us about that?
Yes, so the Kyve token is, as you said, very complex and interesting. You can do tons of things with it. So basically, the main functionality is staking. And once you've staked your tokens, that allows you to participate in our governance. So every single decision, parameter updates, code updates, new integrations is always a governance decision, meaning that you can vote on it. The very cool thing with the way Cosmos works is because you delegate to a validator will always vote and will carry your weight with it. So you can be completely inactive. You can just say, hey, I trust, I don't know, like Chorus One's vision, for example. You can stake to them and you will carry whatever they vote. You can always individually step in and be like, no, I don't like this one. I want to, like change the vote independently. So it's not like an active thing, but every single decision we have on Kyve is being voted on. Another cool thing, what we have is lots of Paul's work is our public good funding initiative. So the way we were sitting down, it was last year, almost 2 years ago, Paul, at this point, which was like, hey, like we have the Kyve token, but we work with so many like amazing projects and we do such a nice service for them. Why don't we run a validator also as a source of truth for us on that network? And we take 100% of those rewards that validator is generating, and we use this to actually fund the storage pools on Kyve, which means that right now, if you stake the Kyve token, you actually get 7 or 8 different tokens from our partners that participate in public good funding as a reward. So we are not just basically having an inflationary token where like, okay, like you pay out, your yield. It's like, no, there's like actually external revenue from the chains and the partners that we work with coming onto the Kyve network as like proper external revenue, which I think is also very unique behavior that we have implemented there. But as you said, it's
That
very
actually
complex,
kind of like,
lots of
oh,
things.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
Sorry, I actually had a question along those lines, and you kind of touched on it just now, but aside from having your own validator, like let's just use Ethereum or Solana as like just a real basic example. So let's say one of those chains was like, hey, our chain's really old. We have a ton of data we need to archive, and a lot of our nodes don't have this data. So you can run a validator to try and like validate your own data. But then the source of my question is, without that, how do these these projects, these chains, how do they onboard? Like, do they need to like go into their own funding, swap into Kyve, and then use the Kyve token to upload? Or do you guys have, just for an example, like R Drive, for example, they'll take all sorts of different tokens, and then on the back end they convert it into their own currency, so you don't have to worry about it. I was just wondering about that. Do you like work with their native currencies to onboard that data to Arweave?
Yes and no. So basically, you can fund in your native currency as an external network. Let's take Celestia as an example, right? Like they work with us. We run a validator on Celestia. Those rewards we fund. So like if you are active in the Celestia pool, you do get tier tokens as a reward. The Kyve validators that are storing the data on Arweave always pay in Kyve. Because we do work actually with the R Turbo team, and you can pay with Kyve tokens for Arweave storage. Also, maybe something that not everyone knows. Like it is fully compatible. So our validators pay with Kyve tokens for the Arweave storage and not with R. And they do collect more than Kyve in rewards for doing that.
What give us a little bit of alpha here, like give what's coming down the pipe, you guys. If there's something that you've already announced, but you feel like maybe it could use a refresh, I'm all ears. And any sneak peeks at things coming down the road, more than welcome.
For sure, for sure. So we had an update, well, Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, happening a couple of weeks ago. And basically we did 2 or 3 weeks ago, right? Where we did a couple of improvements. So like one thing I just said, because validators need to pay in Kyve primarily, we've actually switched the payout mechanism. So validators get now primarily Kyve because that's what they need. With a nice side effect is that most of the public good funding foreign tokens end up with the user. So actually, like if you are staking Kyve right now, you will most likely see an increase in like other tokens that you get. And if you are a validator, you will most likely see an increase in Kyve tokens and less of those foreign tokens. So that's like something that I think we've did, which increases just like the overall like user experience a lot. We also created like I would say, easier to onboard web app. If it's called our dashboard. There's still AppKive Network, which is the more complex data app. We just have a dashboard, which is primarily focused for staking, multi-coin rewards, more like if you really want to get started with Kyve. It's like another thing. And I said, like the big thing we are working on right now is also like working on like this read layer, improving like how data is being like accessed, talking to teams there. And maybe, Paul, like you always have some things to share for sure on like the business development side of things that are not so technical.
Yeah, we are looking also for more integration with the public good funding. So to join a new network that we can support, bring more data on chain, because there is a need like basically for everyone. There is not a layer one right now that is going out that have solved this issue. That doesn't exist. No one is really paying attention to that. As Fabian mentioned, like Solana, like few days ago, like team building on Solana announced that they have done some improvement on that regard. But like when you check like the amount of data, there is still plenty of work for us to do. Like I think you can find a conversation that I had with Tolly, I think a month or two ago, about like storing Solana data on Arweave on Twitter.
Oh, when Totally just woke up one day and decided to tweet at us. That was a
Yeah, and
fun day.
I decided to jump in. I always decide to jump in conversation. Like the same for Artifact. I don't know if you remember for the Clonics that are no store basically on Arweave, thanks to our drive also and their support. But we are also very advocating not only like for Kyve but also to explain why decentralized storage solution is important. Like overall, like trying to educate people, because I think there is a lack of understanding. And when you see like those big piece of data disappearing from like drives and stuff like that for companies, and they don't have anything anymore, and like no one is talking about, it's like kind of crazy. Like all most blockchain data are like super centralized. We have seen we see it every day with data loss. We see data every day with data being gatekept. We have a lot of work also on the Ethereum ecosystem with EIP 4844 and 4444. It's a big topic. It's a big topic also for the Ethereum community and ecosystem. And I think there is way more coming in terms of like new chains that want to have a fast transaction and stuff like that, but don't really handle with the state growth and data growth of their archival nodes. So like it's plenty of work for us and to adapt to make it more also more education around Kyve and how to access those data basically.
Yeah. Okay. It is kind of a funny like blind spot how we're all like, oh, you got to put the data decentralized, da da da, and it's like, well, what about the old data that's decentralized? You know, I don't know. Like, so here comes Kyve and Arweave hand in hand solving that
Some
problem.
chains want to forget their history, you know, Ethereum Classic, etc., etc.
I mean,
You're naming names,
it's not a bug,
Johnny.
it's a feature. If you do a privacy chain, like if you have no historical data, like I mean, but you also lose some decentralization. How you sync your node from Genesis, for example? Then it's always like how you see the spectrum of decentralization and what real decentralization you want.
Yeah, we haven't even started the L2 conversation yet, right? Like with no nodes and just a centralized database. And has anyone ever asked where like the OP stack historical data lives?
Oh,
I thought it was in
Do you-
tiny little roll-ups.
I think we're doing it right now.
So do you guys talk to L2? Is that even possible for you guys?
Yeah, like
to-
actually, I'm curious. Like, can you do that? Like, or is it not?
Yes, so it's definitely like, you know, conversations that we are having now. Like it's again, like I think the whole like data space is always like now with AI and things like becoming more and more important for us, like to scale in that directions. It is conversations that we are having. You know, but of course, like it is also like a conversation around commercialization of those efforts having, and as Paul said, like lots of like educational work over time, like a steady drop holds the stone. I don't know if you say that in English. It's at least a German saying. That like, you know, that just needs to happen to like raise this awareness, because it's also like, in all honesty, like not a topic most projects wants to hear about. Right? Like everyone is hyper focused on growth, right? And they need to come in and be like, well, wait a minute. Make sure you have your old stuff as well, because it's not a problem now. It's not a problem in 2 years. When you get to like 4, 5, 6 years, like that is when people are like, okay, now it's getting quite expensive. Is someone really gonna access that transaction from 3 years ago? I don't know. And this is like when we start to see like those systems fall apart. Really.
So is that
Go.
Oh, go ahead. I was just wondering about so is that kind of like the when you guys are like pitching to have Kyve help out, is that the biggest thing, is like you're competing against hyper growth mindset? Is that like the biggest thing when they say, you know, we're kind of on the fence?
It's the tortoise and the hare.
Yeah, I think Paul is definitely like, yeah, Paul, just go ahead.
I think the problem is that you don't see the problem till it become a problem, and not talking about like only like chain data, like I'm sure you all remember when we woke up with the artifact thing and Clonex, and everyone was like, oh, the images disappear and the price dropped and everything, and it was like, I texted like the CTO back then, and I was like on Twitter, public tweet, and I was like, yeah, it's like a mistake from your side. And he was like, yeah, but I didn't have time, and it was not top of my priority, and no, it's like all fucked. So if it's just to tell me that, just better don't text. And I was like, hey, actually I can help, like no problem. I'm happy to provide support and stuff like that. I'm not here to shit on you. Like I'm just here to say like it's not a problem till it becomes one. And the problem, it's when it's a real problem with like NFT metadata images, it's okay. When we are talking about accounting, legal stuff, all those like data analysis and stuff like that, because if we want to be fully transparent, if you want to onboard the next like big institution for like long term and stuff like that on existing chains, they need history. And what we see also is that more and more chain, like you take Arc, you take Tempo, like institutional are launching their own chain because they want to have control over like data production, like block production, and so on and so on. But the data management will become also a huge part. So it's where we can play in. And to jump back to your question, like it's not that they are cold about it, it's that they don't see the benefit of paying for it right now. And it's not a problem till it become one. It's for that also we jump in with the like public good funding initiative, because as Fabian mentioned, we are a chain, so we have like validators, so we know how validator behave. We know what validator can some of them can promise and some of them can deliver, and sometimes it's really little. And we were like, okay guys, you are printing out token like with inflation, transaction, and so on, and the money is just dumped by validators that is just dumping the price without providing any added value to your chain. So like, why not build like use a public good infra, use your token to pay for this public good infra, and to add an extra layer of utility basically to your token. Because when we are doing this, we are not only like making them pay the validators for the upload and so on just to pay. We are also adding like a utility to the token, and on top of that, we are adding public good infra to attract more builders to their ecosystem. So it's really like how we approach like deals to try to educate and explain how it can benefit not only for their ecosystem but also for the economic model of their business in the long term.
Yeah, that there are two expressions that I've really liked on this. One is it's not a problem until it becomes one, from Paul. And Fabian, I looked up that German expression, Stiere Truppen Holtenstein. How's my German sound? Is it
Exactly.
pretty?
There you
Yeah,
go.
I nailed
This
it.
is it.
Yeah, I'm basically fluent. That's a cool one. I'm gonna keep that in mind. Johnny Jeff, I have like this has actually been super cool. You say data archival, and you're like, it's like it sounds important but serious. But then you start talking about the AI aspects. You talk about the conversations you guys had, where it's like, oh shit, well, we need taxes, since Genesis Block. You're like, holy crap, this is a massive, massive problem, but also opportunity. So I'm good at my questions. Johnny, Jeff, anything else before we say au revoir and what is it? Wiedersehen?
Good job. Yes.
Yeah, no, I'm just showing off at this point. Okay, Fabian, Paul, incredible conversation. If you guys are watching out there, want to learn more about Kyve, check them out on X, join their Discords. I appreciate you joining. I learned so much.
Thank you so much. I actually have, like, for the listeners, like two things.
Yeah.
One, look up Solana block 59437028. That's the missing one. Just kidding. But you can just Google Solana missing block and you'll find it like right away. It's like pretty famous. And how do you get it? It says please reach out to the support and we'll backfill it for you. So
Wait, are you for
just,
real right now?
Sorry? Yeah,
Really?
like everyone just reach out like to it. No, just kidding. But like this is like, I mean, it's like a common thing. It's actually not something like people are trying to hide, right? And then maybe also if you want to learn a little bit more, I wrote, just to not point the finger at someone, an article about Kyve itself, because one day I was looking up how many addresses did we have on Kyve. We have 3 main explorers. We have our own chain. We have ViewBlock, as many of you Archive people might know. There's a Kyve ViewBlock. And the third one was MinScan, also like a big Cosmos Explorer. And actually all 3 of them gave a different number of how many wallets were on chain, which is kind of weird because it's a blockchain. So you would actually think that they all would give the same answer. So not to say this is a problem that like only exists at like a couple of things. It also exists at Kyve. It's down to like, the way the infrastructure is written, down to like certain also assumptions that are being made, right? Like what is an address, what is an account, what is not an account. But check it out. It's like an article written by me. Maybe I can make a tweet in a little bit, just repost it or something, but gives you a really good idea of like where the porridge is like if you want to learn a little bit more.
Basically, it's just don't trust verify. So we just, it's like, I think we all agree and we all are in this industry for that. And like sometimes people tend to forget for data that don't trust the data, verify it.
I think that should be like a motto around Arweave data in general, because like even AO itself is built on that concept. Instead of, monolithic verification, you have verification at every step that you can do optionally, or you can choose to trust your node. So that's don't trust, verify. That's like a great motto all around, I think.
Yeah, I didn't want to put ViewBlock on the spot, but we recently passed 20 billion transactions at Arweave, and we were looking at a ViewBlock, but then when we went to check it ourselves, the numbers didn't match up. So, good point there. Don't trust, verify.
Perfect. Well, it
Well,
was such a pleasure.
there's now a fire drill going off in this building, so I'm definitely gonna go. Guys, it's been a pleasure. Check out Kyve. Till next time.
Thank you, guys. Bye bye.
Thank you. See you all. Bye bye.